You know, there's a question I'm sure a lot of people ask when it comes to any kind of franchise, whether it's a franchise from a comic, animation, an adaptation, whatever. But the biggest question, especially when it involves certain characters, is why tease a ship instead of going through with it? And what I'm talking about is the various teases that a lot of franchises like to give with certain characters when it comes to a romantic situation. Only several times, if not most times, do they follow through on these teases and actually make the characters involved an official item. But I wanted to come on here and discuss, in my opinion, the various examples of going through with it, implying it, and semi implying and going through with it, if you know what I mean. So let's list those off now, shall we? I think the first biggest example, in my opinion, of teasing a romance, a ship, if you will, and pretty much implying that you've gone through with it, is from Disney's Zootopia. More than likely than any, that being Judy and Nick. Now, you might say, why is Judy and Nick, looked at as a potential romance that was teased and implied to have gone and happened? Well, when you take a look at certain scenes in Zootopia, it kind of gives it away. I mean, let's take a look at how it begins. Judy basically has to have Nick around her, or at least, I guess you could say, confiscates Nick or manipulates him into helping her try to solve a bigger case because she pretty much feels there's something more going on in the city than what's being led on. So she needs Nick's street expertise, if you will, to kind of help solve the case. And throughout the movie, they become a little closer as friends, if not, potentially something more. And then at the end of the movie, they end up becoming pretty much a team. Nick becomes an official officer of the ZPD, and they become partners. And there's a line pretty much towards the end of the movie when they're going on the first case, in the city, to where pretty much they're assigned to come after a speed chaser. And as they're driving, they're playfully teasing each other a little bit. And we get to a moment where, I think Judy just suddenly stops the police car out of, teasing and, messing with Nick kind of deal. And Nick just looks at her and goes like, you love me. And Judy's like, do I? Do I know that? And then she looks at him and going like, yes, I do. So that pretty much indicates or implies that Disney kind of went through with the romance, although we don't see any like on-screen kiss or anything like that between them. Which you would normally see in a Disney story of any kind if it involves shipping or teasing a potential romance between two characters. They eventually do go through with it by having those characters kiss on the lips or show some kind of really romantic affection. But they didn't do that here. The closest they got basically was them going on basically a date, it looks like, to the Gazelle celebration concert that was being held at the city stadium. But, Judy and Nick are just one example, in my opinion, of how, you basically tease a possible attraction, romance between two characters, and sort of imply that you've gone all the way through with it. But there are other examples as well. One in particular involves, well, a couple that by now a lot of you know that I'm a big fan of. That couple, of course, is Sonic and Sally. Now, what I like about this, just like anybody else likes about it, is the fact that it's built over time. Yes, it's pretty much indicated from the very beginning, whether it's the Archie comics or the Saturday morning cartoon, that there is something more between them than just best friends. But what's great about it is it builds up over time, and you finally get those certain moments at the end of the series, or at certain moments of the series, that pretty much clarifies that these two are more than just BFFs. They are now boyfriend and girlfriend. A good example is the ending of the Doomsday Project. I mean, even before that, when Sonic's still still wanting to do this on his own, not endanger anybody, Sally pretty much puts her hand over his mouth and says emphatically, we, as in italics word, italicing the word, says, we are in this together, Sonic Hedgehog, no matter how it ends. Which pretty much opens Sonic's eyes and makes him realize, oh, I get it now. You want to be there with me till the end because I mean more to you than just as a friend kind of. It pretty much it opens his eyes to realize she's in love with him. But it only takes a moment like now, or then I should say, or takes a certain moment like that for her to pretty much come out in her own way and confess it. So it takes moments like that. It took moments like the death egg and the death egg situation around 225. If not even before that, it took Sally going with another guy or potentially going with another character, and then Sonic being teased to be shipped with somebody else, and that kind of slowly building up, which some people will give Ian Flynn credit for doing correctly. So pretty much Sonic and Sally's relationship is just one of those prime examples out there of something being done right, to where you tease it, you hint that they're more than just friends, and then you finally go through with it. That's a good example. But there are other examples out there that kind of imply that there's something more to the friendship. And I think there's one couple or one ship, again, that I'm a fan of, that people may disagree with or agree with, kind of goes in that direction. And of course, I'm talking about Spike and Rarity from My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. As I've mentioned before, pretty much Lauren Faust came out and said that Spike was being used as our point of view to show how beautiful Rarity was as a character. Now, as I've mentioned before and others have probably touched upon, she probably had no idea that it was going to snowball into basically the phenomenon, the fan favorite that it would become. I mean, you have an episode where pretty much Spike is trying to confess his love for Rarity as they're falling through the sky, only for her to stop him and say, visually with tears in her eyes and a smile, that she already knows. I mean, it goes as far as the fact that, despite how you feel about it, when you get to Best Gift Ever, which was their Christmas / Heartwarming Eve special about a year and a half ago, you have Spike's gift to Rarity being the gift of song, but not just the gift of song, but the song being a very romantic-like song. In other words, confessing his love for her. And, some people may not interpret it that way, but I think anybody that's watched any kind of stories, involving holidays and all that, Christmas mostly, that when it comes to something like this between two characters, the creators, the writers, the studios pretty much saying, yeah, we hear you and we acknowledge that there is something more between them than just friendship. Now, again, some may blow that off, but when you look at the end of The Last Problem, especially during the Magic of Friendship Grows video montage, if you will, or segment, you have at various times at the end and in the middle of it, Rarity right next to Spike, and you have in the middle portion of the song, you have Rarity in that group shot, looking up at Spike. And it's like, okay, obviously, they're implying that there's something there between them, besides just regular friendship. Because if you think about it, Rarity and Spike were the only other two out of the main 7, if you will, that showed up without the indication that they were together with somebody. You had Pinky show up with her daughter, or son, her child, her filly, if you will, indicating she's with Cheese Sandwich. You tease the fact that Applejack and Rainbow Dash were together, and even Fluttershy and Discord. So it makes sense that you have the two that was shipped and teased heavily to probably end up being more than just friends, showing up on their own. But throughout the song montage, basically indicating, hey, they might be together, but it might be the kind of relationship because of their jobs that they have to kind of meet each other once in a while when they can. So it's implied, basically, in the eyes of a lot of fans, that something did happen between them. And to me, that's kind of how you build it up and leave the door open from an implication deal. You don't come straight out and say, yeah, Rarity and Spike got together. You imply that they got together by showing these little bits and moments here and there. And basically, in the end, you leave it up to the imagination of the fans if you want to. Or if you feel like it down the line, finally addressing it in another kind of medium, whether it's another special, whether it's an all new animated version of Friendship is Magic, maybe, who knows. But eventually you leave it open to be addressed officially or implied by the fans that something did happen. But here's the thing. Even though Spike and Rarity are looked at as a teasing ship romance, implied correctly or left, correctly open, there are some that pretty much are left open, but, it still makes people wonder, what direction was Disney or any other company, Hasbro, MGM, whatever, deciding to go in the future. Okay, so basically what I'm talking about is the fact that, in Chippendale Rescue Rangers, you pretty much tease several ways of where Dale could land. Now, when I did my top 10 ships video, I basically put Dale and Gadget in there as a top ship, if you will. Because basically the way I looked at it, Disney, or the creative crew at Disney behind the show, along with Tad Stones, and Kev Harps, if you will, or Kev Hops, if you will, were basically trying too hard to basically tease the fact that they were showing favoritism towards a Dale and Gadget romance. Why? Because when you look at the countless times Gadget shows affection between both Dale and Chip, Dale's the one that usually gets the most attention. He gets the most hugs. He's the one that got kissed on the lips. Stuff like that. And it's like, seriously, Disney, seriously, Disney, Tad Stones, Kev Harps, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say you favor Dale and Gadget being together? If so, then maybe you should just come out and say it. And as I've stood by in recent videos and in the past several years, I've basically stated that I believe had that Rescue Rangers movie come out back when it was originally scheduled to, after the DuckTales Treasure of the Lost Lamp movie, I think it would have been in that film of Rescue Rangers that we would have gotten our answer, and the answer would indeed be yes, Dale and Gadget being an item. Because again, why tease it so much throughout the entire series with all these various moments and not follow through on it? But the reason they didn't follow through on it, though, was because they were opening the door wider for other possibilities. And in the case with Dale, they opened the possibility up with a character like Foxglove. Foxglove came in, and basically the rest was history. And the reason the rest was history is because, unlike the last time, or the first time they brought in a new character to be a potential love interest for one of the Rangers, in this case Chip, Dale was more receptive. He was more accepting of, hey, here's this girl that likes me. Maybe there's something to this that I'm not seeing, and now I am. And you want to know how popular this ship became and how much potential it had. When Boom Studios decided to do the 8-issue revival comic of Rescue Rangers, Ian Brill, who wrote the stories, brought Foxglove back as an integral part in the series. In fact, in a letters page that he put up, he even basically stated that she is looked at as Dale's sometimes girlfriend. In other words, stating, in his opinion, from what he could see, like the rest of us, Dale and Foxglove are more than just friends. They are basically boyfriend and girlfriend. But, again, the door is still left open. Because after the 8-issue revival by Boom Studios, we haven't had any new Rescue Ranger material until we got the cameo in DuckTales. The cameo guest appearance in DuckTales earlier this year. So, to me, when it comes to something like Dale in Rescue Rangers, it's like, if you're going to tease it, tease it with so many indications and Easter eggs and all that, then you need to follow through on it and make it official. You either need to make it official, or you need to do something that states that it's just what Gadget's way of showing love and kindness towards everybody, not just Dale. You got to do that, because in my opinion, the best example of it being done right from a Rescue Rangers continuity standpoint was when Ian Brill added it into the Boom Studios revival comic of that show. By putting Dale and Foxglove together, and as he says in the letter page, pretty much making them an item. So when it comes to Rescue Rangers, and mostly Dale, I look at it two ways. I look at it as being done semi-correctly with following up on the whole, potential romance between the two at the conclusion of Good Times, Bad Times, and building off on that in the new revival comic. And I also see it in the other way of, hey, if you're going to tease so many moments, affectionately, romantically between Dale and Gadget, you might as well go all the way through with it. And like I said, I believe had a movie been made, which was originally planned, I think that movie would have been where we would have had it addressed and been made official, in my opinion. But Rescue Rangers are not the only ones that have this kind of teasing of, romance, chemistry between the characters, but not really following through on it with the, but leaving the door wide open. There's another Disney property that does that too. Another Disney property that does that, of course, is the show that followed Rescue Rangers, Tailspin. And that would be the romantic chemistry, if you will, between Baloo and Rebecca. Now, as I've mentioned before, and others have probably pointed out, Baloo and Rebecca's relationship was inspired by the Rebecca Donaldson, Sam Malone relationship in the NBC sitcom Cheers. Very similar and identical. But here's the thing. In Cheers, even if it was for a brief period, they actually went through with the romance. They actually made it official for a brief period between Sam and Rebecca. Here in Tailspin, they teased it on so many occasions that you would think it was only a matter of time before they would go through with it. But the thing is, they never did. All they did in the end was leave the door wide open for speculation and implication. And a lot of fans would pretty much come out and say that they pretty much know that Baloo and Rebecca, because so much evidence was thrown out there, that they ended up getting together. Again, there was, you had, scenes, you had scenes like probably the ones you're going to see here on the screen, if not already. They had those kind of moments. And people look at that and they wonder, why tease this and not go all the way through with it? Why not make an episode, if not serving as the series finale, where you pretty much put them together? This is just, again, one of those examples of a romance being teased, romantic chemistry being teased between the two, and not followed through on, but left open for speculation and implication. And here's the thing, I will put it like this. I think Boom Studios and Ian Brill missed out on doing a Tailspin one. Unless they did do one, I think they missed out on something. Because honestly, I believe had Boom Studios also picked up on doing decided to do a Tailspin comic as well, revival comic, I think we would have had our answer in that comic. I really do. But we never got an answer. Again, it's up to speculation and implication by the fans. Now, you might say it sounds very similar to Spike and Rarity, but the thing is, at least we had some kind of visualness at the end of, the last problem, which was the final episode of Spike and Rarity maybe together. And then we also had a moment, like I mentioned earlier, of Spike singing that song to Rarity in Best Gift Ever, pretty much being nothing more than a love song, confessing his love for her, and the visuals pretty much aided that evidence to be true. But, here's the thing, with the exception of a few or several moments within the series, and, that we could see, there's no real implication or speculation at the end of the series, except for maybe one line. And this is at the end of that one episode, was pretty much a parody of the Pearl Harbor attacks and the invasions by this country called or this supposedly lost civilization, Panda Law. And basically, at the end of it, when Baloo pretty much saves the city and gets a ticker tape parade for him and Hire for Hire being the heroes, which you could say serves as the finale the way it's presented. The only indication we may have, if that is served as the finale, is Rebecca shouting out to Baloo that she loves him. And that's the only indication that we get. That's the only indication that we get. And again, it's, there's no other real confirmation. There's no other real confirmation. And, it's left open to speculation and implication. And that speculation and implication goes to the fans. And the fans, in my opinion, have done a pretty good job at, well, sort of basically, making it an official thing between the two. Now, to end this, I want to talk about a couple that actually was done right when it comes to teasing the ship and going all the way through with it, even up to marriage. And we're going back to the Sonic comics for this one, and that is Antoine and Bunny. Back in issue 23 of the original Archie Sonic run, it had a short story that ended with Antoine kissing Bunny on the cheek. And that pretty much got a lot of people thinking at that time, are they teasing something? Are they teasing something, and hopefully are they going to follow through on it, or is this just a one-time deal? Well, guess what? Issue 45 comes around. I think it's 45 or 46. I think it's 46. Issue 46 comes around, and they finally follow through on that one little moment we got in issue 23. They follow through on it with Bunny confessing her love for Antoine. Because she's always thought he was brave. It's just that there are times... But, well, basically, that's the thing. She always believed he was brave. He just has a hard time, figuring it out or trying to identify himself or has the right support. And her coming out and saying that she cares about him and kissing him on the cheek, much to his surprise, again, is a great follow-up to what was teased at the end of issue 23. And throughout the entire run of the comic, with a few hiccups here and there, this was one of the more steady relationships that was worked upon throughout the entire series. And it culminated basically with Antoine proposing to Bunny and getting married to her. And this is an indication and a major example of something being done right. That if you're going to tease something, not only do you have to follow through on it, but you should also try to go all the way with it. And that's what they did here in this comic. No matter who the head writers were, it doesn't matter who the head writers were at the time through the various eras of the Archie Sonic book. When issue 23 happened, pretty much that was the tease that opened the door for this relationship to become a reality, and it did, and they followed through on it all the way up to the proposal and the marriage. And this is an example of something done right. That if you're going to tease something, don't tease it. Don't just tease it and not do anything with it, or leave it up to speculation and implication in the fans' minds. Follow through on it. And to me, this is the best example of them doing it. This is the best example, in my opinion, of a romance between two characters being teased and followed through on all the way through. Because again, they teased it here. They teased it at the end of issue 23, and they went all the way through with it until the marriage. And I think in, 174. They did that. And that is the best way, if not the correct way, of doing a proper, tease, a proper a romance ship that you tease from the start and you follow through with. You don't leave any doors opened. You close every door and you check off every mark, and you basically state that by having the two characters get hitched, if you will, you pretty much are saying we were committed from this from beginning to end. I mean, Ian Flynn, even when he took over, was committed to it when it came to this relationship, because he kept this relationship going, this marriage going, into the soft retcon reboots version of the comic. And that should tell you something. That should tell you something right there. But to me, if you want any great example out of all the other things, all the other ships that I've talked about, teased and all that, this right here is a primary example of doing it correctly and not leaving anything unturned. This right here is the best example. So, in closing, these are just some of the characters that, in my opinion, or some of the ships, I should say, in my opinion, that have been teased and have been sort of implied to have happened, but also have been shown to have the door left wide open for speculation, and have kind of been indecisive depending on the direction of, where they wanted to go with a certain character when it came to romance. But, as I just showed, in closing with the last one, this is also an example, or that was also an example, or this video, I should say, also showed an example of how it was done correctly. Because once you do it correctly, you go all the way through with it, show you're committed to it, no matter who's writing the story, then that shows that you see something special, that you want to see this happen. And honestly, I think that's all any writers of an animated series, a comic book, whatever, whether it's an adaptation of an animated series or an adaptation of a toy franchise or a video game franchise, whatever the case may be, from a cartoon or a comic book perspective, if you're going to tease a romance between two characters, then you need to go all the way through with it. And it's ironic that I should say, that the franchise that actually went all the way, at least in one case, was the Sonic franchise. And that's hard to believe. But I thought I'd just come on here and, just list off, the numerous ships that were teased, and like I said, was somewhat implied to have happened, left open for speculation, as well as kind of indecisively left open for speculation of who, one character should be with over the other. So, thank you all for watching. Let me know what you all think down below. Comment if you want. Stay safe, and I am out.